NBA player rankings ahead of the 2025 season. So who's in the top 5? Number 1, A'ja Wilson. Number 2, Napheesa Collier. Number 3, Breanna Stewart. Number 4, Alyssa Thomas. And
reminiscent of crash outs, very often completely out of proportion to the reality of this point. But it is strange to see them continue with such passion, and really all they are is an indication of Caitlin Clark's.
Get ready, basketball fans. There's turbulence in the WNBA, and it's not just a routine shakeup. What we're witnessing is a major shift in how talent is being recognized, and the aftershocks are hitting hard across the league and beyond. This isn't your average roster debate or friendly ranking dispute. What's landed is a list so baffling, so at odds with both current performance and undeniable upside, that it's raising serious eyebrows. We're talking about a ranking that doesn't just stir the pot, it threatens to upend the entire conversation around player value in women's pro basketball. And at the center of the controversy? A glaring omission or undervaluation of a rising force, a player who hasn't just made a name for herself, but who's rewriting the rules of impact in real time. She's not only electrifying crowds, she's reshaping how the game is played and perceived. The basketball world can't stop talking about her. And now, with this list, they might be talking even louder.
As I don't love it. As you can probably guess, I don't love it. Caitlin Clark at 5 is crazy to me, and it's crazy to me just off the rip because if we look at the MVP voting from last season, she was number 4 in MVP voting. It was A'ja, Napheesa, Breanna, and then Caitlin. I don't know how she slides down into the number
to change her appearance and put on some mass and put on some real muscle. And let's be real here. She got the crap kicked out of her last year. She got physically mauled at times. All right. Now, she may be thinking, look, if they're not going to call these flagrant fouls and they're going to let everybody in the league beat the crap out of me, I better do.
Bleacher Report just dropped its much-hyped list of the top 20 WNBA players heading into the new season, and the response? Immediate and explosive. What's usually a lively preseason tradition has erupted into one of the most talked about controversies in recent league history. These kinds of rankings are typically meant to stir the pot a little, spark conversation, get fans talking, maybe even fuel a few rivalries. But this year's list has done far more than that. It's lit a wildfire of backlash. Why? Because sitting in the number 5 slot, a placement loaded with meaning, is none other than Caitlin Clark. Yes, 5th. Let that settle in. While A'ja Wilson at number 1 and Breanna Stewart at number 3 reflect a well-earned legacy of dominance and championship grit, Clark's position feels, to many, wildly misjudged. Here's a player who's done what few rookies, or even veterans, ever have, breaking attendance records, skyrocketing TV ratings, and injecting the league with a level of buzz that's gone global. She's not just a standout rookie, she's a cultural phenomenon. And yet, she's been slotted behind 4 others, in a move that feels less like analysis and more like a subtle dismissal. To many fans, this isn't just a number on a list. It reads as a clear message, and not a flattering one. Critics are calling it a snub, a misread of her influence, and a potential credibility hit for an outlet that claims to have its finger on the pulse of the game. With the WNBA gaining momentum and loyal new followers by the day, this kind of misstep could cost more than just clicks, it could fracture trust.
Caitlin Clark is only going into her 2nd season. She's also not coming off of a college season. She essentially played an NBA season last year, the amount of games that she played. She has had an entire offseason to get stronger, to get ready for the 2nd WNBA season. She was getting double and triple teamed last season, face guarded, on here, and she was still in the top 4 of MVP voting. And
no one like Caitlin Clark in the history of the
If you thought the fan response was fiery, it pales in comparison to the searing takedown delivered by veteran basketball analyst Rachel DeMita. Her reaction didn't just hint at disagreement, it was a direct and passionate rebuke. This wasn't your standard media pushback, it was a pointed, unapologetic dismantling of the list's credibility. Let's break down this top 5, she opened, her voice heavy with disbelief. Because I absolutely do not agree with it. From the outset, DeMita made it clear, this wasn't just a questionable ranking to her. It was baffling. And that's the word that now dominates comment sections and clips, bewildering, her term of choice, and one that's caught fire across social media as the definitive reaction. But DeMita didn't stop at emotional critique, she came equipped with receipts. She brought cold, hard data into the conversation, pointing directly to last season's MVP voting results. Let's review. A'ja Wilson at the top, followed by Napheesa Collier, then Breanna Stewart, and yes, Caitlin Clark, firmly in 4th. That's not speculation. That's a matter of public record. So how, Da asked, does Clark now fall to 5th on this list, specifically behind Alyssa Thomas? It's a question that sparked a much larger conversation about potential bias and the weight given to media narratives over actual performance and influence. To Da, this isn't just about one misstep in ranking, it's a symptom of a larger issue. She's now become a leading voice calling out what she sees as systemic undervaluing of a generational player, and by extension, a challenge to the credibility of those behind the evaluation process.
Number 5. The writer says Clark was also somewhat tough to slot. Having a rookie ahead of multiple champions and MVPs feels like a case of too much too soon, and there aren't court quibbles to poke at. The turnover numbers, I knew this was coming, though explainable with coverage and degree of difficulty, context are still a lot. There is certainly growth.
Championships are definitely a team recognition. They are something that a team does together and accomplish as a player. And when you are ranking players, you are ranking them as an individual unit.
Now the spotlight shifts to Alyssa Thomas, and rightly so. There's no denying her status as a seasoned WNBA veteran with a rock-solid resume. Her contributions to the game are respected, and her presence on the court commands attention. But when you weigh her current standing against that of Caitlin Clark, especially at this moment in time, the decision to rank Thomas higher is drawing sharp criticism from fans and analysts alike. For many seasoned basketball minds, this ranking feels less like a justified comparison and more like a head-scratching contradiction. Rachel didn't pull any punches when addressing it. With unmistakable conviction, she stated, "If you honestly believe Alyssa Thomas is better than Caitlin Clark in any meaningful area of the game, you're either misinformed or operating with a clear agenda." Strong words, yes, but they echo a growing frustration within the basketball world. No one's discrediting Thomas's impact. She was a steady, veteran presence for her squad last season. But her performance, while solid, didn't hit the elite heights we typically associate with MVP frontrunners. Clark, meanwhile, didn't just play, she exploded onto the scene. She smashed records, sold out arenas, and transformed the energy around the league. From viewership to ticket sales to on-court production, her influence was seismic, and it's still rising. So to see her placed beneath a player who, by most metrics, had a less explosive season? It's raised serious questions. This isn't simply a matter of opinion. It's about what the ranking implies, and the uncomfortable possibility that we're witnessing something more than just a flawed evaluation. Whether it's bias, resistance to change, or something deeper, one question now hangs heavy in the air. What's really behind this ranking decision?
About turnovers and not having any rings. I just want to take this mic and bang it against my head if I hear someone else say that she hasn't won anything and that's why we can't label her as great. So LeBron goes in the league his first season and doesn't win an NBA title.
Ranks the top 5 women's college basketball players of all time. And they leave Caitlin Clark off for the simple reason of not having.
Let's now address the ever-present shadow that seems to trail every serious conversation about Caitlin Clark, her turnover rate. It's the critique that never quite goes away. Even the controversial ranking in question leans on this stat as part of the justification for placing her lower on the list. Yes, they acknowledge the context, the defensive pressure she faces, the complexity of her offensive responsibilities, but still, the number is framed as a significant red flag. But here's the thing, raw turnover numbers don't tell the full story. And increasingly, basketball experts are pushing back on what they see as a one-dimensional analysis. Rachel DeMita, joined by a growing number of respected voices in the game, argues that this interpretation flattens the complexity of Clark's impact on the court. Let's dig deeper. Many of Clark's turnovers weren't a result of sloppy play or poor decision-making. They came from something entirely different: vision. Her passing game is bold, advanced, and often razor-sharp, threading the needle in ways that demand a high level of timing and chemistry. In many cases, her teammates simply weren't ready for passes that bordered on genius. The ball went where it should have gone, but the receiving end wasn't quite there yet. So what does that say about her? Not that she's careless, but that she's operating on a level that pushes the boundaries of what's possible. Her so-called mistakes are often the natural result of her playing a faster, smarter, and more complex game than those around her. It's not a weakness. It's a testament to just how advanced her basketball IQ really is. In that light, framing turnovers as a primary knock against her isn't just unfair, it's intellectually lazy. What some see as flaws, others recognize as signs of a generational talent still syncing with her surroundings. And that context matters.
In any other sport, and we especially don't do it in basketball. We do not rank NBA players based on if they won in college or how many titles.
But the case against Caitlin Clark in these rankings doesn't stop at turnover stats. There's another, quieter narrative weaving its way into the conversation, the age-old argument about championships. It's the familiar refrain, she hasn't won a title yet. A worn-out talking point, often recycled to undermine rising stars before they've had a full opportunity to build their legacy. The ranking breakdown hints at this idea without outright stating it, implying that placing a rookie ahead of seasoned champions and proven MVPs is a step too far. But here's the real question, is the absence of a championship ring a fair or even relevant yardstick for judging an individual player's talent, especially when they're just entering their second professional season? Rachel DeMita doesn't just reject this logic, she dismantles it with surgical precision. Her response is sharp, emotional, and grounded in reason. If I hear one more person say Caitlin Clark doesn't belong in the top ranks because she hasn't won a title, she says with visible exasperation, I might just start hitting my mic against my forehead. Her frustration isn't performative, it reflects a broader exasperation felt by fans and analysts alike who see the hypocrisy baked into that line of reasoning. And she brings the perfect counterexample to the table, LeBron James. When he entered the NBA, he didn't immediately win a ring. Yet no one in their right mind would have dismissed his greatness or questioned his place among the league's elite. Why, then, is a different standard being applied here? The contradiction is glaring, and DeMita refuses to let it slide. To tie a player's worth exclusively to championships, especially this early in their career, is not just flawed, it's disingenuous. It ignores the context, the talent, and the undeniable impact a player like Clark is already having. And as this debate unfolds, one thing is becoming clearer. These critiques say more about the people making them than about Caitlin Clark herself.
But we do not do this, especially in their first year. So the fact that they're putting her at 5 just because other people have won championships is just a cop-out.
At this point, the conversation takes a darker and more troubling turn. What we're seeing with Caitlin Clark's recent ranking may not be a one-off oversight, it might be part of a larger, recurring pattern. And for those who followed her journey closely, this moment feels all too familiar. Cast your mind back to her college years. ESPN, now a leading promoter of WNBA coverage, played a strikingly similar hand. In a highly publicized segment ranking the greatest women's college basketball players of all time, Clark's name was nowhere to be found. Not even in the top 5. The reasoning? Once again, it was the absence of a national championship. Sound familiar? There's an emerging pattern here, a sort of unofficial script that seems to activate anytime Clark's name starts climbing too high in the public conversation. When her dominance becomes too loud to ignore, out comes the same tired argument, no ring, no recognition. It was controversial then, and now, as it echoes through the professional ranks, it's giving fans a strong sense of déjà vu. What made that moment even more unsettling was the way ESPN packaged it. They prominently used Clark's image to tease the video, even titling it provocatively, Is Caitlin Clark the greatest of all time in college basketball? Viewers clicked in, expecting a celebration or at least a fair evaluation, only to be met with a complete omission. Her name wasn't on the list at all. That's not just an editorial decision. That's textbook bait and switch. Leveraging her star power to boost traffic, only to sideline her in the actual content, a move that calls into question the motives behind the coverage itself. It's a classic example of prioritizing clicks over integrity, and it's left a sour taste with those who expect more from sports journalism. For many, this latest WNBA ranking feels like a continuation of that same narrative, one where Clark's accomplishments are acknowledged just enough to draw attention, but never quite enough to secure the recognition she's earned. And the question that now looms over it all, how long will this playbook be allowed to run unchecked?
Actually. 2 people in the top 5 who played during the offseason in Unrivaled, and that's Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier. And if you're going by that, Breanna Stewart actually didn't do as well as a lot of people were expecting in Unrivaled. And she also didn't win. I don't even think her team made playoffs. And again,
The deeper you dig into this situation, the more the contradictions begin to stack, and the hypocrisy becomes impossible to ignore. Rachel DeMita, along with a network of analysts and investigative voices across the basketball world, has uncovered evidence that makes the current treatment of Caitlin Clark look not only unfair, but alarmingly calculated. What they found was buried in a SportsCenter segment from 4 years ago, a ranking of the top 10 college basketball players of all time. The list included 6 men and 4 women. But here's the part that should stop everyone in their tracks. 3 of those male athletes had never won a national championship. Let that sink in. One of them was Oscar Robertson, a player whose greatness is beyond question. He landed at number 5 on ESPN's definitive list, and yet, he finished his college career ringless. That didn't stop ESPN from recognizing his legacy. Nor should it have. Because his impact, his talent, and his influence on the game transcended that single metric. But when the conversation turns to Caitlin Clark, the tone changes dramatically. Suddenly, a missing championship becomes a disqualifier. The same outlet that celebrated male legends without rings now weaponizes the absence of one against a female phenom who has arguably had a greater impact on her era than anyone else on the court. That's not just an inconsistency, it's a clear double standard. The criteria for greatness seem to shift depending on who's being evaluated. And in Clark's case, the bar keeps moving. This isn't about isolated rankings anymore. It's about a pattern, one that selectively rewrites the rules depending on the name in question. When Clark delivers history-making performances, she's used as a promotional centerpiece. But when it's time to tally accolades and assign legacy, the goalposts quietly move. And at that point, it stops being about stats or titles. It starts looking like something much more intentional, a system built to undercut, to contain, to control the narrative surrounding one of the most influential athletes women's basketball has ever seen.
Expecting Breanna Stewart to be in that MVP conversation in Unrivaled, and she wasn't. I don't think Breanna Stewart should be ahead of Caitlin, and I also don't think Alyssa.
To complicate the tangled story behind these rankings even further, we must bring in another key factor, the off-season Unrivaled League. Bleacher Report's top 20 list includes players who competed in this alternative league during the WNBA offseason. Notably, 2 of the top 5 picks, Breanna Stewart and Naphiza Collier, spent time on those courts. While that fact might seem important, it exposes a glaring contradiction. Breanna Stewart, ranked number 3 in the WNBA list, didn't exactly dominate in Unrivaled. In fact, her team failed to reach the playoffs, falling short of expectations. Rachel DeMita cuts right to the heart of it, pointing out that Stewart's performance in Unrivaled didn't match the high hopes many held. Her season ended early and without postseason play. Now, it's not fair, nor widely argued, that Unrivaled results should be the sole factor in WNBA rankings. But here's the catch, if Stewart's underwhelming showing in that league isn't held against her, then why should Caitlin Clark's off-season choice to focus solely on intense training and strategic growth be a mark against her? Clark dedicated her off-season to honing her skills, preparing methodically for the upcoming WNBA campaign. Yet this commitment seems to pale next to Stewart's ranking boost, creating an inexplicable inconsistency. This disconnect highlights a deeper issue, potential bias creeping into how these rankings are crafted, fueling skepticism about the fairness and transparency of the entire process. At its core, this controversy forces us to confront a fundamental question: what really defines a top player or a true MVP? Is it simply a matter of crunching cold, hard numbers? Do box scores tell the whole story? Or should our evaluation embrace something far more complex, qualities that aren't easily captured by stats alone? Rachel DeMita makes a compelling case for this broader perspective. She challenges us: are we willing to move beyond mechanical stat comparisons? Can we recognize the subtle yet critical influences, the ways a player shapes team chemistry, elevates the performances of those around them, and transforms the very flow of the game? When viewed through this wider lens, Caitlin Clark's claim to elite status becomes undeniable. She's not just racking up stats, she's breaking attendance records, sparking enthusiasm among a new generation of fans, and forcing opposing defenses to rethink their entire approach. Clark isn't merely playing the game, she's changing it, both on the hardwood and across the broader basketball culture.
How much does that go into the MVP conversation? Are we just going to put these players' stats on paper and compare them in that sense? Or are we going to see how they're also impacting their team, elevating their teammates, and
while some corners of the media and select analysts fixate on attempts to downplay her impact, Caitlin Clark is clearly far from complacent. Reports from trusted sources reveal a grueling off-season regimen marked by intense physical conditioning, strategic muscle development, and the careful honing of her already impressive skill set. Having faced relentless physical pressure last season, frequently targeted by double and triple teams, Clark is preparing to return not only stronger but smarter and more resilient. Rachel DeMita insightfully highlights Clark's intentional physical transformation, noting her significant increase in muscle mass and definition. This isn't just about aesthetics, it's a calculated response to the reality on the court. DeMita suggests that with referees showing reluctance to call blatant fouls and a tacit acceptance of physical intimidation tactics, Clark's off-season focus on strength becomes not just beneficial, but essential. She is equipping herself to withstand, and counter, aggressive defensive play. This preparation sends a powerful message: Caitlin Clark is evolving. It's more than personal growth, it's a strategic announcement to the entire WNBA landscape. She's gearing up to elevate her game to a new level, and the league would be wise to anticipate and respect the force of her amplified presence.
Between the two. So it's a bit of a toss-up for me here with my top 3, because Nafisa Collier, we got to see her play during the offseason, and I thought she did incredible. I thought her game was elevated. Her footwork is absolutely unmatched. Caitlin Clark.
So, what deeper truths emerge from this heated ranking controversy? It's clear this debate goes well beyond a single list or the subjective judgments of a few commentators. Instead, it exposes a recurring pattern, a carefully shaped narrative pushed by certain corners of the sports media, one intent on minimizing Caitlin Clark's impact, despite mounting evidence that contradicts that stance. Yet, there are forces no ranking or media campaign can suppress. Clark's raw talent, relentless drive, and the unmatched energy she brings to the WNBA are undeniable. Whether she's placed 5th, 10th, or lower, attempts to sideline her influence fall flat against the reality she continues to create on the court. Caitlin Clark isn't just a player, she's a phenomenon reshaping the landscape of women's basketball. While some outlets may try to cloud her rising star, the future of the WNBA, and the entire sport, shines brighter thanks to trailblazers like her. What's your take on this controversial ranking? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more sharp basketball insights and updates. Thank you for watching. We look forward to bringing you the next deep dive soon.